Hey, I'm live. Welcome to Zinni 62 on a Thursday night, everybody. I'm going to focus on, there's so much to focus on, but I decided to specifically, singularly bring this one item of information to you because I believe it is an important window into what's actually happening with respect to the Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas, NFL, UNLV Stadium, as opposed to what we're led to believe. And the title of it, this is actually on Oakland News Now. The title of the post that I just put up on oaklandnewsnow.com is Oakland Raiders send new survey asking fans to buy Las Vegas Stadium bricks. And if you want to read along with what I'm about to present to you, the link is right here. Hello, Mr. Marks and others. There is the link. You can follow along with what I'm about to read to you, and then the discussion will commence, and we can rope in the other news as well. The Raiders Las Vegas Stadium survey also asked for $100 PSL deposit. That's the subtitle. I digress. The Oakland Raiders sent an email on Thursday entitled, "Brick by Brick, we need your help," and asking fans for help with Las Vegas Stadium by answering a survey and eventually buying something. I know about the survey because the Raiders sent one of those emails to me. The first paragraph went like this. The Raiders are currently evaluating a program to provide a special opportunity for Raider Nation to leave its mark on Las Vegas Stadium. It is our goal to integrate Raider Nation into the fabric of Las Vegas Stadium. But to create the best program possible, we need your help. Please click the link below to take a short 10-minute survey to provide your feedback. The Oakland Raiders Las Vegas Stadium survey was indeed short, and I took it. But once you take it, you can't go back and copy paste the questions for presentation like, well, in a blog post like the one I'm reading to you. That written, it asked you what you would be willing to pay to have a brick engraved with your name or message in the pavement at some location around Las Vegas Stadium for both the NFL and UNLV. The survey prices to have a brick varied between just over $120 and just over $320. The survey also asked, how many bricks would you buy, and if you would buy a brick for someone else. But what was interesting is what popped up after I completed the survey. The Oakland Raiders are still taking $100 PSL deposit applications. What appeared was another JavaScript-enabled page that invited me to pay $100 deposit to eventually buy a full PSL or personal seat license. I was under the impression that the Oakland Raiders were selling PSLs very well, as headlines like Raiders PSLs selling fast in Vegas were common during mid-July of this year. The overall picture painted with the help of the media was that PSLs for the Oakland Raiders Las Vegas Stadium were going like hotcakes, even though they were as much as $75,000 per seat. In other words, the Las Vegas Stadium features a PSL price that is twice the cost of that for the Atlanta Falcons PSLs for its new stadium and host venue for Super Bowl 53, and yet they're selling like there's no tomorrow? Well, if that's the case, why the new chase for the $100 to sign up for $100 PSL deposits? How much money, which leads to this question, how much money have the Oakland Raiders really raised for Las Vegas Stadium versus expenses? This brings up another question. How much money have the Las Vegas Raiders really raised for the construction of Las Vegas Stadium versus what the Silver and Black has used to date? Given the giant amount of money, the public money, committed to the creation of Las Vegas Stadium, one would think that the Clark County Board of Supervisors and the Office of Governor Brian Sandoval would keep a constant eye on stadium construction finances and report findings to the public on a regular basis. Not so. The quality of public financial information connected with the Las Vegas Stadium project is so bad that the last meeting of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority failed to report on the status of its own budget, and in its posted documents presented stadium construction cost reports that were 3 months old. It's almost as if there's something wrong and someone doesn't want us to know about it. That's what it feels like to me. Stay tuned. And with that, I will begin our discussion. Wow, there's a lot of you here. Hey, everybody. Hey, John Marks, who says this is a sham, Zinni. Let me go up and see what comments I have missed from all of you. Let's see here. Excuse me. Go up. So then go down. Oh, and then the barber says, I'd buy a brick if it's in Oakland. John Marks says, I'd buy a brick if it was in Oakland. Melvin Lovejoy says, Raiders trying to be like the Niners, laugh out loud. They said bricks, but not because they were broke. They sold bricks, but not because they were broke, did the Niners, says Melvin Lovejoy. John Akala says, hello, everyone, to which I say hello back. John Marks says, the Raiders owner, Mark Davis, is whatever. I'm not fond of jokes. I'm not fond of that sort of thing myself. I'll buy a brick, he says. Someone, Rarecal, says, I'll buy a brick if they let me through. Oh, that's terrible. All right, so what else do we have here? Oh, we got more comments. Okay, yeah, that was the latest one. All right. This program seems to have started just almost in secret. It's like wasn't planned. The first, hey Barry Lee, how you doing? What's going on? I just read off is that the Raiders are selling bricks. You can have your name or message engraved in a brick that will be part of a sea of bricks at Las Vegas Stadium. Basically, they need money, so they're passing the hat. This is the first extensive survey done since June of 2016, when the Raiders sent out emails to several thousand members of the Chamber of Commerce organizations in Las Vegas, asking them, various questions like from ticket price points to seat locations and that sort of thing. John Mark says, sorry, Zinni, but this is how we feel, even if you censor our thoughts on Mark Davis. Yeah, but my point is that I want to say that you can be disagreeable without being you can disagree without being disagreeable, right? And when you type that here, what is disrespectful to me, this is how I look at it, is I read comments, and rather than give me something constructive to read, you give me something that reflects an overall ill of society that just shouldn't be, okay? I don't know if anyone ever stops and thinks about the number of negative comments we read on social media and how that makes us feel in a day, or the number of comments we see out there as opposed to intellectual discourse. All of these small actions, these tiny little points add up to a big thing. And right now, from my perspective on society, it's a big negative thing. I haven't never seen an overall level of angst like I've seen in society today. And I am going on a bit of an off side here. What bothers me is that this isn't considered a mental health crisis. Sure, we know you don't like what Mark Davis did. I don't either. I don't dislike the man, however. There's no reason to, okay? You can dislike someone's actions. But my point is, it's not going to do anyone any good to consistently make the kind of insults that a 6-year-old can make. As an adult, I expect people to rise to a level of adulthood. Bring up something smart. Even let me drill down even deeper. Did anyone here get the same email? I'd like to know what you thought about the email, right? This could be a great medium to exchange information. It doesn't have to be one way. That's what I like. But also I've just credentialed for the NFL owners meeting, and I am going to see Mark. Mark may have his issues with me or whatever, but I refuse to have issues with people. The reason I do is because there are too many people who are infected by this culture of social media, and they're letting it get to their brain And in many different ways, the outcome is negative. It's not good. All right. So let me press on. Barry Lee is here. Thank you, John Marks, for the respect. Barry Lee says, bricks, they should plaster it so that it'd be easier to tear down the stadium once it falls in Las Vegas. No, that's funny. John Akala says, has Bank of America already approved the Raiders line of credit? That's what I'm trying to find out. Or is it possible the Raiders won't get it? See, that's what I'm trying to find out. And that is the biggest question of all. Okay, and I should have included that in the blog post, and I will write an update. Hey, DK Nation, how you doing? And John Mark says, what email? John Mark says, there was an email sent out to Raider fans or people on season ticket lists like myself who asking us to buy a brick. That was what it was, okay? Joseph Bismuth says, sup, folks? Patriots too good. Oh, I knew someone was going to bring that up. You know, the Patriots, it was like all this talk about the Patriots' demise. Give me a break. And when everyone else knows, hey, the Patriots don't have the greatest start, but then they heat up and they end up kicking your tail, right? Detective John, how you doing? Detective John says, sadly, social media comments reflect society. But, well, my point is, it's what will be called, what is a process that eats itself, all right? Whatever that term is, that's what we're talking about. The comments might reflect society, but my point is that do we necessarily have to have them consistently reflected back at us? You know, at some point, you have to stop. You have to form a break, okay? Barry Lee says, I hope you have been good, Zenny. Good to see you again. Barry Lee, it's great to see you too. And Jamal Mills. Jamal says, Barry, you're hungry. Yeah, Barry, you need a Snickers bar. Oops. Joseph Binsman says, sorry about your athletics, guys. My Yanks wanted the Reds. Oh, man, you had to come in and do that. Were you the guy who poured water on the A's fans' head, Joseph Binsman? Shame on you. Shame on you. And bravo to the A's for coming to his rescue, in a sense. The Yankees shelled the A's. It wasn't funny. Joseph Ben says, no, I'm not like that. Laugh out loud. Thank you. I'm glad you're not like that. Barry Lee says it's been a long week. Pedro Gallardo. Pedro says, any 2019 news where Raiders play? Oakland Coliseum. It's been confirmed that they're not going to Las Vegas. At least they're not going to Sam Boyd Stadium. That's kind of the only game in town right now. So as I've said before, the Raiders right now, let me tell you where things are from what I know, what I put out earlier this week at oaklandnewsnow.com, which I suggest you bookmark if you haven't already. The Raiders, in fact, you know what I'll do is I'll just read it to you rather than reciting what I already put out there. I'll rather than not reciting it, because I'm going to recite that, but rather than try to remember what I reported, I can just go and type it here and say, Oakland Raiders Coliseum lease extension, NFL lawsuit making progress. And this is what I put out on October. This is just a few days ago, on Tuesday. Okay, this is October 2nd. The latest news in the seemingly never-ending story of the Oakland Raiders lease extension process and negotiations is that for the draft of the lease agreement is that the draft of the lease agreement is being rewritten as of this writing and with the potential for a lawsuit in mind, in part. Quote, we are exchanging red line versions of the draft language, said Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority Executive Director Scott McKibben, but ultimately it will come down to the lawsuit issue. The lawsuit issue refers to the much talked about and anticipated lawsuit that the city of Oakland is planning with the work of sports lawyer James Quinn and a team of attorneys based in New York City. I called Jim Quinn directly today, and he said, we're making progress. That's all I can tell you. However, what is known, and I have been told, is that in July, in closed session, the Oakland City Council gave Oakland City Attorney Barbara Parker the right to file a lawsuit. In other words, the Oakland City Council approved the process of starting a lawsuit already. That's news which should not come as music to the Oakland Raiders. Oakland Raiders owner Mark Davis and Oakland Raiders president Mark Bedane have been of the collective mind that they want a clause in the proposed lease extension such that the Raiders can bow out of the deal if the city files a lawsuit. What the Raiders don't seem to realize is the city of Oakland has already started the process. The Raiders keep saber rattling about leaving Oakland, but what I'm discovering is they've pissed off so many people, what they say doesn't matter. Rather than the Oakland Raiders waiting to be fawned upon, the organization might try to take a more humble approach. In Las Vegas, no Super Bowl and no Bank of America financing. On an aside, one matter of concern to this YouTube vlogger, Zinny62 on YouTube for my shameless plug, is the Raiders have not officially announced they received that $850 million line of credit from Bank of America. That's a major part of the Las Vegas stadium financing. There was no press release, no announcement, nothing. Vastly different from the whole bond issue situation. The money is to replace the $650 million that Las Vegas Sands founder Sheldon Adelson was going to put in but backed out of doing in 2017. That B of A money is something the Raiders would have to pay back, and with interest, if they got it. What happened to Bank of America? Stay tuned. So that's what I put out on Tuesday. So that shows you I've reached out to potential sources who are reaching out to other friends of theirs to find out behind the scenes what's going on. And John asks, Kyle asks, if it comes out that Bank of America doesn't give the Raiders the line of credit, I think Vegas Stadium is dead. You know, I can't see it moving forward without that. And I can't. And the reason why I say that, John Mark says, no, it's not Joseph Binsman. No, it's not. What's not? No, what? Just I missed that. Oh, I don't know. What you guys got going there. Anyway, Cowboy Wrestler, how you doing? Oakland forever, Barry Lee says. And Cowboy Wrestler says those Raiders need to go to Vegas already. Play at the blank hole Boyd Stadium for a year or two. Actually, Sam Boyd's out. According to Las Vegas Review Journal, Michael Gherkin, I'm fearful of mispronouncing his last name, but he said he talked to a source that says Sam Boyd Stadium is not in play for the Raiders to leave, such that the Raiders would leave Oakland early for Las Vegas. That's not happening. And so Pedro Gallar says, also, I've been hearing the Raiders will change their name once in Vegas. The team leaving breaks my heart. Changing the name is a nail in the coffin. Well, the only name they're going to be is the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's kind of a logical extension of the fact that they're going to be in Las Vegas. They're not going to be in Las Vegas being the Oakland Raiders. Yeah, I get that one. ML Scott, how are you? ML says, hi, everyone. Detective John says to Cowboy Wrestler, no, I need to see them at least twice before they go. Richard Carlson says, here for Moss Bluff. Richard Carson is here from Moss Bluff, Louisiana. Moss Bluff, Louisiana. Welcome. Barry Lee says, Scott, hello. Pedro Raider Hernandez says, they should be called the Las Vegas Knights as well. Ricky Ruth says, what if Adelson fronts the money? That's exactly the point. You know, Ricky, I'm going to come back. I'm going to stick on your point for a second and read these. I'm going to read these comments and then come back to your point. All right. Pedro says, leave the Raiders behind. I don't understand that one. Pedro Hernandez. But Ricky Rush says, what if the Sheldon Adelson fronts the money? John Mark says, oh, I'm pretty upset about the censorship of the media. Different thing. Corey Brown, how you doing? Corey says, do you know if there was any truth to a local Las Vegas group petitioning to have the team name and colors and logo changed to something that was uniquely their own? That's first I've heard of that. I'll check into it. Tell us what you know, please. Barry Lee says, John Marks, I hope you've been good, sir. If a Las Vegas group did that, and they're paying money to do that, it would effectively leave the Oakland Raiders, the Raiders free to be an Oakland brand. That's interesting. Let me just set that over here and come back to the whole Sheldon Adelson front the money thing, okay? Because I say that because if Adelson goes back to actually presenting the money, to me, it would make sense regarding the kind of behind the scenes that we've seen. Remember, at first, the Las Vegas Review-Journal was writing negatively about the deal. That was last year. And then toward the tail end of last year, they started writing in the middle part of last year. And then the tail end of last year started writing positively about the deal. And they continued that. And now they've been kind of lukewarm about everything. You know, they've ceased to be the great cheerleaders they were even just a few months ago. And you can tell by the tone of what they put out when they put out something versus the Golden Knights, which they wholeheartedly embrace. You know, this is the opening night, or last Thursday was the opening night of the Golden Knights in Las Vegas, and that's all you saw. Okay, Raiders were just this, little afterthought. Nothing. There's no daily thing about the stadium. It's not the rah-rah enthusiasm that there was initially. So if you take that and combine it with MGM president Bill Hornbuckle's statements that he felt that the Raiders were essentially choking out MGM Resorts and the other casino members of the industry on the Las Vegas Strip, it spells a slow erosion of the honeymoon type emotions that surrounded the Raiders building the stadium in Las Vegas. And that's a bad thing to happen before the opening of the stadium. Okay? But that's the situation. Let me go back to your comments. Cowboy Wrestler. Wait a minute. I think I missed some things here. Carl says he'll be in Oakland in a month. Pedro says, leave the Raiders name in Oakland. I'll check on that. Detective John says, well, it's looking like they will stay for 2 years, but for me, it's just another team mediocre at best. John Mark says, I've been good just for the people being mean. Okay. Pedro Gallardo says, Pedro Raider Hernandez, there's only room for one Pedro. Richard Carson says, what happens about the money being paid for the previous renovations to the stadium? That clarify for me, because that money is being paid. If you're talking about the Coliseum, that's $10 million City of Oakland, $10 million Alameda County. The lawsuit would address that in terms from the perspective of any possible settlement. Assuming, of course, the Raiders don't prevail and the City of Oakland and its team does. Okay. But where we are right now, even then, is I believe there's still $70 million to be paid on that bond issue, maybe a little less. Eduardo says, when do you think the lawsuit will happen? I contend that it may already have been filed, and we don't know it. They've been the City of Oakland. They have really handled this. The city attorney has, Barbara Parker, in a way like I've never seen a city attorney office in Oakland handle anything from the perspective of obscurity and silence. And they've been really quiet about this. They have basically verbally flogged anyone that they felt was making too much noise about this deal. That's what I've gotten it back. Okay. The city attorney's office in Oakland has operated as if they are the KGB. Yeah, I said that. That's exactly how they've handled this situation. So Jim Quinn says they're making progress, but when he says making progress, what that means is that, first of all, it means that they're going to do something. Okay. If they weren't going to do something, Jim's, and I'm hesitant because I'm leaving out a lot of our conversation. But if they were going to do if they were not going to do something, Jim's tone with me would have been entirely different. It would have been a bit more, we're waiting. Like when I interviewed him earlier this year, it was, well, we're waiting for the council. We're waiting to decide. All right. But I can tell you the city council's already weighed in. I can tell you that the council gave the city attorney the right to file a lawsuit. What that means in black and white is the city has already decided it wants to do something. It's simply leaving it to its experts to decide how to do that something. In this case, that something is the lawsuit. Okay? Now, because it comes from me that people don't want to quote it, but I'm sorry, those are the facts. Okay? It's the way it is. Now, Christian Carlos says, do you think there's a good chance Oakland keeps the name and colors? You got to win the case first, all right? Pedro says, how's the hotel tax coming out now? Are they still in the negative? Well, let me explain. Right now, nothing's changed. They're averaging $4 million a month in terms of the take. Once they start actually paying on the debt service next year, they're not going to have this huge reserve to deal with it. Let me clear up a gigantic misconception that many of you have in your head exists, that the money that has been collected as far as being banked to pay for the bond issue. No. That money was banked. It was given to the Oakland Raiders starting in May to the tune of $48 million to use for construction. Why? This is something you have to understand. The whole purpose of raising the bond money was to have a chunk of money to use to build the stadium, in part, okay? Therefore, as a way of basically reducing the monthly debt service, and yet making sure the Raiders received enough money to build the stadium from the county's end, Hobbs, the financial advisor from Hobbs Ong, developed a plan to do what is called pay as you go. They would essentially pay for construction before the bond issue was actually, the bond debt actually became ready to be paid upon. They would do pay-go, and then they would float the bond this year with the debt payment cycle kicking in next year. Okay? So the whole purpose of that was to, as much as possible, reduce the monthly debt service, even times the debt coverage ratio of 1.5. Here's the problem. Because the tax rate is just 88/100ths of 1%, it's not bringing in enough money to even cover that monthly debt service times the debt coverage ratio of 1.5. When you go through, and I went through 30 years, all right, it never, ever hits it, ever. It simply increases in the deficit to a point where it's behind by one scenario as much as $250 million, and by another by about $64 million. No matter how you cut it, it's a loss that Clark County has to pay for with its general obligation, with its tax money. The misconception everybody makes, and I realize I'm missing, reading your comments, but misconception everybody makes is that you have Clark County here, and then it's going to dip into its tax money whenever there's a negative. No, the bond issue already rests on its tax money. That's why it's called a general obligation bond. If the bond issue relied only on the revenue from the tax, it would be called a revenue bond. That's why I get so sometimes it's seemingly crazy about what's said about the bond issue and everything. If they were, the reason why they didn't do a revenue bond is because they knew that they were dealing with a dicey political environment where they wanted to have their cake, the Steve Sisolaks of the world, and yet make sure the bond finance community was able to eat the cake as well. What's the cake? It's the bond issue itself. So what they did is they said, hey, look, we'll have this tax to raise the money. The tax will be less than 1%, so we don't hear from the electorate, hey, you have this 1% hotel tax on sports and education needs the money. Okay. Originally, it was going to be 1%. If you look at the consultant documents, right, originally. But then Sisolak got a hold of it around June, April, May, June of 2016 and said to Jeremy Arguello and Guy Hobbs, hey, consultants, this isn't your proposal. This is the people's proposal. This is our proposal, meaning mine. So we're going to do the tax rate the way we want it, not the way you want it. We're going to do the subsidy the way we want it, not the way you want it. The consultants wanted a subsidy of only $550 million. Mark Davis said, hey, look, if it's less than that, if it's $750 million, we walk. We're going to walk. No one called their bluff. Two things happened that got this into trouble. The subsidy was stuck at $750 million, all right? And then the stadium hotel tax was started as low as 0.7%, and then it got bumped up to 88/100 as a kind of weird compromise, but it was still never enough. And then on top of that, the consultants thought, well, gee, we can use this really low bond interest rate of around 2%, and we'll get away with murder because basically that will give us the debt, the lower debt service that we think can handle this. But guess what? The market went up. It went up to 3%, even before they started. So they were stuck. So basically the climate for this was set last year. It was set at the SNTIC. They thought the market was going to respond a certain way. It didn't. Fortunately, the media is not, like it used to be, so no one paid attention. They were just rubber stamping stuff all over the place, forming, this gossip mill. Well, so-and-so said this to me. You think anybody that's connected with a deal this big okay, and I want everybody to keep this in mind. Now that bond issue is done, the people who handled the bond issue, they got paid. They got a ton of money. They got the largest fees ever connected to a bond issue for a sports facility in history. So they were not going to just do anything. They were not going to say anything to this guy, knowing full well that I'm right, because they didn't want to kill the goose that was going to lay their own golden egg. It's called greed. Okay. There you go. All right. So let me get to your comments. Richard Lucero. Hey, Richard, I've seen you sometime. Richard says, why don't we just keep the Raiders in Oakland? Give the stadium to the Rebels and stop this nonsense. This is BS, just saying. Rave Script says, also doesn't feel like Mark Davis is really in love with Vegas. Well, that and Gruden. Luis Fitzgerald says, I'm sister shocked. Louisa. Barry Lee says, well, Richard, the problem is there's money involved and money talks. That's the comment of the night. Cowboy Wrestler comments, he says, Richard Lucero, because Davis wants public money and Oakland's not going to give it to them. Yeah. And then Richard Carson says, do you believe the NFL, its owners, would step in to help make sure the Raiders complete the building of this stadium? That's the other good question. And I think that let me put it this way, okay? And I'm going to say just like this. If President Trump believes this is worth saving, he could ignite Sheldon Adelson and Jerry Jones to get the NFL to do it. And you say, why would I mention President Trump? Because you have a faction in the NFL that starts with Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft that is beholden to Donald Trump, who's one of Donald Trump's biggest, if not largest, financial backers who was one of his biggest financial backers when he ran for president, Sheldon Adelson. So if this deal went south and it looked like behind the scenes help was needed, someone would ignite those, maybe call Trump, say, can you talk to Adelson? We can work a deal on our end and move forward. You would say, why go on that to that level? Because the only reason we got that this far to begin with is the number of power brokers that were involved to start with. I mean, look at there's a murderer's row of people. The late Adam Paul Laxalt, the Laxalt family, Sisolak, the Dean Nevada Senator Dean Heller. More, and there's someone else. Even Orrin Hatch was involved in this thing. I mean, everywhere you looked, there were massive power brokers that were focused singularly on the Raiders Las Vegas Stadium in a way I was shocked to find out. There are a ton of strings pulled, a ton, okay? And you can bet that the reason those strings were pulled was because of Mr. Adelson. That's why Adelson got so mad at Mark Davis. But it was Adelson who helped move through the gambling legalization, and is trying to figure out a way to benefit from it now that casinos can put their names on stadiums openly. Okay. So I think under those circumstances, if it looked like it was going to belly up, you'd see a lot of political movement to keep it alive. A lot. Okay. A lot. Now, the only reason you see, here's the other point. It's one thing for us to say, yeah, the Raiders stay in Oakland, but Oakland has done nothing to present a scenario that would give any NFL person comfort that Oakland truly wants NFL football. There's no plan to retain the Coliseum. Everything regarding new stadiums is under the title Oakland Athletics. Only the A's are doing anything. When you talk about the future of the Coliseum, part of that future includes, shockingly, possibly tearing down this Coliseum or giving it to Elon Musk or something other, anything, a number of possible directions that point to a non-sports future. At a time when you got, what, Milwaukee just opened their forum for the Bucks. You got Seattle working on an arena. You have the Redskins seeking a new home for the Washington Redskins seeking a new home themselves. The possibility that the Jaguars will build one in Jacksonville. You got all this activity going around the United States regarding new facilities, new arenas, new stadiums, and yet you have Oakland basically doing absolutely nothing from the public end, proving that Oakland itself lacks the will and the initiative to complete big public projects. By contrast, for as much as we may not like the Las Vegas Stadium situation, you would be dishonest if you did not give Clark County and its bureaucrats an A+ for their work in moving Las Vegas Stadium forward. It is an incredible, admirable economic development job. One more feather in the cap of the great Stephen Hill, who is now the president of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and a person who I've admired for years from an economic development standpoint. I told him so personally. Okay. I've said that before on my show too. You compare what they've done, it's a unified relationship that starts at the city level and goes to the government. Oakland could have that. It has that with respect to the A's, right? but it doesn't have that respect to the Raiders. And you have to give Libby Schaaf credit for the A's, but we saw it coming. She kind of telegraphed it. It's like, yeah, I like the A's, you know. I don't really like the A's. I don't like the Raiders much. They're okay, but I really like the A's. Okay. That's not the way you build a city, by the way. You just build. Okay. So anyway, let me get your comments here. John Collins says, good night. Good night. I'm going to have to bow out myself in a few minutes. I'll another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay. Barry Lee says, Cowboy Wrestling response to you. Got it. Thomas Beltran. How you doing, Thomas? Thomas says, my city is not going to give anything to someone like Mark. Mile High Raider says, yeah, it would be a miracle. And I want to make something absolutely clear. All right. Economic development does not have to equal the use of public money. Okay. I'll repeat, economic development does not have to equal the use of public money. It can be using the office of the mayor, the office of the California Assembly member that represents your area, the office of senators, congresspersons, to marshal private dollars to focus on a public good, like building a stadium, which employs many thousands of people. It doesn't have to be public money. Keep that in mind. It's just political will. All right. I think that should be emphasized. Robert Carson says, that's why I'm thinking the stadium is going to be completed, lawsuit or not. I feel the stadium will be completed. NFL wants to save face. The Billionaires Club will find a way to finish it. But that would be a tall order. Could that happen with respect to the Bank of America thing? Let's just see how this plays out, okay? Let me put it this way. It's raggedy, to say the least. This is one of those situations where at the end of the day, you're going to say, well, it didn't turn out exactly like we thought it was going to turn out, but it turned out, okay? Because that's already happening. Pedro Gallardo says, speaking of sponsors, will casinos now be able to sponsor new teams? Will Vegas Stadium get any help from Vegas? Come on. When I think of Vegas, I think of casinos. Yeah, that's right. And the largest employers in Las Vegas are casinos. And so, I mean, I can tell you without even guessing that the people who are buying the PSLs are basically connected with casinos. The people who are buying the Raider Suites are basically connected with casinos. And now I'm just waiting for somebody to say, hey, there's going to be this announcement that X casino puts its name on the Raider Stadium. But they're not going to do it without making some kind of deal that makes them richer, okay? They're not going to give up. This is Vegas. No one gives up that kind of money without getting something in return beyond just a name, all right? And therein lay the problem on the delays, okay? That's the situation I've always feared with the NFL becoming involved in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has a different way of doing business that the NFL, I don't think, is quite used to. So, Richard Lewis says, I heard a rumor that Davis is thinking of leaving early and Davison heading to San Diego. Any truth to that? No. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. The Raiders under Mark Bedane feel like it's a good idea to use the press to saber rattle like that. Like, we're going to leave. But Mark should know better. Mark, if he's watching, Mark, you've been with the Raiders since what? Beyond since 85, I think it was, okay? And you know as well as I do. We've both been around a while now. You know that the Raiders have played at the Coliseum under the cloud of lawsuits for years. Some that the Silver and Black has filed, some that have been filed against the Silver and Black, but they always played at the Coliseum anyway. So why Mark Bedane would think, or even Mark Davis would think, that anybody cares if the Raiders leave under a circumstance of a lawsuit is beyond me. Because people are kind of like, yeah, we don't care. You keep saying it. We don't care. Do it. So the Raiders they're not doing themselves any favors, okay? You guys are not doing yourselves any favors in these situations. Well, Pedro, thank you for the investment. I'm behind on that. God, I got to clean that up. I'll make it double shares night, though. I appreciate that. Actually, you know what? I'll just make all the other ones double shares nights, too, because I'm behind. Richard Lucero says, I heard San Diego, too, but as Z pointed out, it will cost them a lot of money to rent out the stadium down there. But not only that, here's the point. This is October. We have October, November, December. The more time the Raiders waste, the less time they have to actually prepare to go anywhere. And then they have to spend money under that time. And it's money that I would bet they hadn't budgeted. I don't think the Raiders had this, account that said money just in case we decide we want to move away from Oakland on a whim. Okay? I don't think the Raiders have that kind of fund out there. There's this idea that NFL teams can just print money. But what is forgotten in that statement is that NFL teams also command and use a ton of money. You can't just make the money and it just sits there. Be nice, but it doesn't work that way. And an important fact that leads to this other point. A team that prints money, that has its own currency, does have that kind of power. I don't see the NFL establishing its own version of Bitcoin yet. Interesting idea. Wave Screw says, where are the Raiders playing in 2019 and 2020? I say Oakland, moving forward. Mile High Raider says Mexicana. Detective says an NFL team in Las Vegas is a gold mine. It makes you wonder what types of companies will want to advertise in Sin City. Casinos. And I contend this, Mile High Detective. The real gold mine in terms of sports money is right in Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons inhaled over $1 billion in sponsorships like that. Okay? People don't talk about that. The Super Bowl is here. Okay? You have so much sports-related money sloshing around this place, it's not funny. It's fueled by big corporations. You have Coca-Cola here. You have Porsche. You have BMW, among others. You've got a number of big firms, Chick-fil-A, all over the place here. Some regional, some giant, like Coca-Cola, that, you have so many big companies and then relations with other big companies, it's not funny. This is corporate America USA. This is outside gambling. Gambling is mainstreaming, of course, but still on the fringe compared to the fact that you have right here corporate America. So for someone to think that Las Vegas has more money than Atlanta, I think is crazy. Las Vegas has what I call show money. But there's real money here, and there's even more real money in the Bay Area. Okay. So, Edward says, why didn't Mark Davis take a look at Contra Costa County for a new stadium? They did. It's a matter of, distance, and it's a matter of land costs. It's a matter of transportation who come out there. It just isn't as attractive out there as an infill opportunity like the Coliseum. Why go all the way out there when you have the Coliseum anyway? That doesn't make any sense. You're right next to the airport. You're at the center of everything, and the city owns the land. You can make a deal with them. Why do that? Okay, it makes zero sense whatsoever. Zero. Which says good to know. Richard Carter says, how do I invest in? Oh, Pedro Gallardo says, San Diego Raiders versus Los Angeles Chargers. What year is it? It's in a game. It's in a game. Let's put it this way. It's in a game. Richard Lucero says, haha, good one, Pedro Gallardo. My High Raider says, it's Raider Nation now, no city. Yeah, well, the whole point is when you have a situation like that and you're this nomadic organization without a place, what it really means is what it translates into, and it means poor merchandise sales. Do you realize the San Francisco 49ers perform better in merchandise sales than the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders? That's right. If the Raiders concentrated on making themselves one home and one identity and one brand attached with that place, merchandise sales would be better. Okay. when you're talking about leaving and being disloyal and going here, at the end of the day, because you don't know who you are, no one else really knows who you are either. And so then you're left with people in your home area not supporting you and not caring if you stick around, which is a lot of the case right now. And then Las Vegas not really exactly claiming you, but for public money that was spent to build a stadium. That's a terrible situation. Overall, the Raiders are not as loved as they should be. And the Raiders created this situation, and it's not good for their business. It's just not. Okay? Look at Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack gets chased off from the Raiders, goes to the Bears, causes the Bears merchandise sales to jump to one of the top 10 in the NFL. That could have been the Raiders. The Raiders could have signed Khalil Mack and reaped the benefits. No. Had to have that big ego. Had to have that big ego. We'll jump on we're the mighty. He used to come to us. He's got to dance to our tune. You know? Yeah. Right. Ugh. Okay. Falcon 408 says, hey, Zen. Late on the show, heard you talking about the stadium. How about the pricing on food and beverage? I hope other stadiums do the same eventually. You know, that's a great question. I'll research that. I haven't heard anything yet. I know the Falcons have been, thanks to Mr. Blank, the forerunners at having cheap food. Cheap but good, right? Cowboy Rush says, I say Levi Stadium for 20. Yeah, Cowboy Rusher says Levi Stadium. You got $14.5 million you want to pay? Wow. You think Jed York is going to work with Davis regarding the rent? I'm going to riddle a guess that he doesn't. Okay? I'm going to riddle a guess that he doesn't. Just saying. Richard Carson says, how do I invest in Vin? Oh, how do you invest in Zinni 62? Oh, thank you. Here. Right here, there is PayPal link, which I will get for you right here. That you can go to. I'm behind in sending the shares. I will get them off to you by tomorrow. There are a number of people on here. I know Patrick in particular is due. So here is that said, here is overdue. But that said, here is the link that I am presenting right here with the big words invest like that. And that's how you invest right there. Okay. So thank you. So Cabrera says Z Dallas is the same way regarding being home to a number of corporate headquarters. Right. Vegas, in a way, Vegas isn't. I'm glad you said that. Dallas is. Rave Script says Atlanta will never be LA. Atlanta ain't even Chicago. Excuse me. Atlanta is now the center of movie production for the entire world. So I don't even know what you're talking about. I think that whole Atlanta won't be LA thing, that ship wrecked, literally. LA has come here because of the high cost of doing business and the lack of a movie tax credit, really a good one. There is no one now, but it's kind of late to the party in California. Just saying. California has literally, the movie industry in California has literally been dumped in Georgia. So there. So anyway, well, Cowboy Wrestler says, okay. Cowboy Wrestler says the Niners are smarter than the Raiders. Raiders Script says, do you think Salt Lake City was ever in consideration for the Raiders? No. End of story. Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. No. Forget it. No. Next question. This is a booming area. I don't know where you get the idea it's not. I mean, look, anytime you want to know how to tell when an area is booming, when you have a TV show named after the area. I learned this decades ago when Dallas, this TV show came out. At that point, it happened to be tied with this emergence of Dallas as the New York of the Southwest, and Dallas did everything it could to really eat up that moniker. It built for something unheard of then for Dallas. It was the Dallas Area Rapid Transit System, DART. Now it's common. Dallas is now a common metropolis in a way that is far beyond what planners foresaw for the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex when I went to school at the University of Texas at Arlington for my undergraduate degree from 1980 to 1985. So no, you can make also the same mistake, and I say that because in that context, what you have with respect to Atlanta is the TV show Atlanta, and you have an emergence of a well-moneyed Black culture here that you should not take for granted. A number of corporations have it, and it's also an integrated, not just, in other words, not just solely Black, but it's a Black culture, but it's not solely Black. Okay, and that's a product to the growth of hip hop and its the influence of hip hop in American society, a lot of which was established here outside of New York and Los Angeles. So, okay, so that's just it. All right. So I don't know. I mean, you have Tyler Perry, who's established studios down here. I mean, there's so much going on down here economically. It's not funny. Now, is it the San Francisco Bay Area? No. No. It's still behind, but it's catching up. And if it gets Amazon, look out. What you have here is a combination of low-cost land, well-educated people, okay, plentiful corporate-level jobs. But what you have as a negative here is a high degree of non-tech people. And when I say non-tech, that goes that's a long conversation unto itself. But you can satisfy that problem by having great, as they do, expenditures on public facilities, which then produce great non-tech jobs that pay well. That's also what you have here. So you consider that in total, you've got a great balance of job types, a great balance of people types, a willingness to spend public money where it should be spent. I'm not saying it's the perfect area, but it has a wonderful gantry for growth that it is used to fare thee well. You should never take Atlanta for granted. You do so, you're a fucking fool. I'm just saying that, just like that. Okay. Ravescript says there's a show called Los Angeles in development. Yeah, well, that's too late. The fact that, in fact, Ravescript, something like that you said it's in development underscores the point. There's something called development hell. Okay. Pedro says Too Short says Atlanta is cool enough for me to move there. I think you need to just discover from an economic development standpoint what Atlanta is about with respect to sports. And sports, Atlanta, to me, created the term sports economic development. All right. But also movies. So you need to find out how many movies and TV shows are made around here on a daily basis. Again, what's going on here is crazy. The Avengers is made right down the way, about 15 minutes. Not just 1, 2, 3. They just wrapped up Avengers 4. Okay. So, hey, all right. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. All right, folks, it is 2:08. I'm going to bed, and we've been on for 59 minutes and 17 seconds. I think I'll let it stretch to 60 minutes and then call it an hour. Mile Higher says, just think of the gimmicks the Raiders can do program at halftime in Vegas to get the stadium full. Yeah, Mile High, I think you're absolutely right about that. And that, I think, is one of the more exciting aspects of a Raiders stadium in Las Vegas is, I mean, if you think what the Golden Knights did is something else, well, that huge space, what the Raiders can do, wow. You know, they're on to something in building in Vegas. And if they play it right, it could reap great dividends. I mean, no question about it. And I say for those of you who talk about Oakland, including myself, but I rest with the fact that from economic development standpoint, Oakland has not delivered. Okay, it is not delivered, and I'm talking about public facilities. We have a convention center that's 150,000 square feet. That's crazy. It should be, instead of 150,000 square feet, it should be 3 million square feet of convention space. We don't have that. And we let these problems exist and languish again and through it all. And the electorate suffers for it. No place else. So what are the chances Falcon 408 says, what are the chances of Falcons winning in Pittsburgh? Not good. Tara says, good enough info, Zany 62. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. Rave Script says, who cares about soccer? Oh, geez. 75,000 people here at games. This is crazy what they do to soccer. Wow. Rave Script says, I thought you were in Oakland. I just sent my rent there, but I've been here most of the time. I'm both places. I'm everywhere. How's that? Cowboy Wrestler says, I think Amazon headquarters will ultimately go to DC area. Why? Muhammad says, Oakland can't deliver. Very true. Rave Script says, Atlanta Legends. Detective John Kimball says, let's be honest, there isn't much of an economy in Oakland. No, oh, come on. There's a huge economy in Oakland. You're missing what I'm saying. Oakland is of the mind that it doesn't need to develop its economy. It does, though. Oakland has left. This is a weird situation. You have progressive Democrats in Oakland who basically have left the development of the economy to the private market as if they were supporters of the GOP. But if you told them that, they would say, oh, no. And they would talk about on an individual basis what each one of them is doing as opposed to a collective basis, which adds up to basically nothing but pot shots in an economy that has been wrecked by the development of extremely expensive housing. Okay. So we used to have a public sector that knew what it was doing in Oakland. We don't anymore. We don't anymore. It is afraid to solve problems that in the past the Henry Gardners of the world, when he was city manager of Oakland, and the Craig Koshans of the world, city manager of Oakland, the Robert Bobbers of the world, city manager of Oakland, knew how to solve. Today, not so much. Not so much. It's not a great state of affairs. And it's not that there are not answers. There are. But there's not the will to do them. All right. I'll see you guys later. I'm out. Oh, but private money all over the place. I'm not saying that's the case, but in marking the political will to privately direct that private money, not where it should be. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night. I'll see you. Thank you.